Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming in the middle of the day. I'm Debbie Schwartz. And if somebody could just put thumbs up or even want to say hi, just want to make sure that you can hear me. Great, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to get started. This is the middle of the day. Going to want to try and wrap this up, within the hour. You guys are the lucky ones because I think I didn't upgrade. I normally upgrade my Zoom account when we have these events. And so I only think 100 people can get in. So glad you made it. Today we're going to talk about financial aid appeals, actually financial aid and merit scholarship appeals. And thank you for people who are putting in chat and saying hello to everyone. I'm assuming that I always kind of like to check that most of the people here are parents or seniors in high school, but let me know if there's anybody here. Maybe we should do it the opposite. Is anybody here who's not, who doesn't have a senior in high school, who's maybe just here interested to understand the process? And I guess parent of a senior, great. I'm also curious, again, I assume, but maybe you don't have have people gotten offers? The families who are here today, have you already gotten some offers? Great. Okay, wow. Okay, so got good merit, disappointing need. Yeah, sorry, I know. Yeah. Okay, so again, I'm going to get started. I am here by myself. Sometimes I have somebody who helps me. And the only reason I say that is I'm probably not going to be able to look at all of the chat questions while I'm going through the slides, but then I'll try and keep my eye on it, and then I'll scroll back after to look at any important questions.
A quick question, Debbie. Should we hold questions till the end, or should we bring up questions as we go, or what's the best, what works for everybody?
Okay. You can pop them in as we go because you might not remember them, by the time
great
you
point.
get to the end. So that's fine. I just might not address it right when you type it in, but you're free to put it in the chat as you come up with the question.
And not do a verbal question then. You
can too. You can stop me. I am fine. That's why I like doing meetings. So you can stop me.
Great.
Okay.
One off the question right off the bat. If somebody EDs and they get a return of what their school offers, are you committed or can you get out of it?
So before I answer that, have people been following Ron Lieber, the New York Times columnist, who has been writing about this a lot recently?
Did see an article on that, yes.
You did, yes. So that's been Ron's pet peeve for a while now, that he's been trying to get schools to comment on it. It's what this word binding, right? It's not legal. So it's really, I guess, a little bit more of a moral and ethical question. Is
there a blacklist out there? That my daughter's talking about a blacklist?
Nobody really knows. I mean, that's Sweet. Again what he's trying to get at. He just wrote an article this past weekend that he published. He had one 2 weeks ago. He's been, harping at this for the past 2 years or so. He wrote about it in his book. He's, trying to kind of hold out colleges, as examples to kind of, because the biggest thing about this is, particularly and the point of the article that he just wrote was that there are some colleges, not all, but some who you don't have any definitive idea, right, of what it's going to cost you, yet they're asking you to commit ED to this binding offer. So like you're being asked to commit to something blind, right? And then, in theory, you can't get out of it after.
That was our experience.
Yeah. So, this is like, I feel like we're in an inflection point in terms of like consumerism and college and going to college and paying for college and college admissions. I would suggest if you truly, there is this definition of what you can afford, right? That colleges will kind of argue with. There isn't a blacklist, I don't think. I don't really believe, because I should clarify this. there is somewhat of a relationship between a college and a high school. And so it might depend on how strong your high school has that relationship with a college. And so the college may be annoyed that at the high school, because the high school is supposed to counsel, the family on what ED means. And then, the college counselor signs off on that document. So, you might be ruffling feathers for the high school. There's not a blacklist for your daughter per se, or your students. So, I don't have a definitive answer. I'd say it depends how much you want to go against the grain, and how much you feel you truly can't afford, what it is that's going to cost you, and if you were blindsided.
Thank you.
And with all of that, I would say if you feel comfortable, or nobody's going to feel comfortable, but if you feel like you want to give it a shot, you can go back and say, I had, from the resources that I had, which is their net price calculator, right? I went into this process believing my cost was going to be is X. Now with what I definitively know, it's different, and that difference I cannot afford. So therefore, I feel like I have the right to, potentially to back out of this. And I will say one more thing before maybe I want to move on, is that about ED, I guess my only question to your situation is, I don't know, is, at this point, deadlines have passed for regular decisions. So, if your student has or has not other applications out there, they might not be able to get into the regular decision pool.
Yeah, no, perfect point. She did apply for other schools, and she's been accepted into other schools. So, now we're weighing, like, she definitely wants to go where she was ED'd, but, it is very expensive, and we're trying to understand like you just said, what is the consumer's power at this point with these institutions? Yeah,
I think, I started in this, field like maybe 5-6 years ago, and people didn't see themselves as consumers. That's what I was trying to hope to get people to feel, but I think that if people are now. So, I think we're just kind of at the start of that tide turning.
Glad to hear it.
Okay, so let me get going. And let me just put my chat up so I can see. Okay, so today I'm going to, talk to you about, what the appeal process is, what you're going to need to put together for appealing. It is different for appealing merit aid versus need-based financial aid. And then, how you decide whether or not you should appeal and what to expect. Somebody's asking, we'll be able to view this later. Yes, this is recorded. We always actually put these sessions up on YouTube, and we'll send a link tomorrow to the actual recording. Oops. Okay. So, there is actually a technical definition of what the financial aid appeal process. It's really, looking, it's the steps that you need to go through to reevaluate your financial situation, or have the college reevaluate your financial situation and look at your student's academic record. And they're basically kind of reevaluating their decision, not the decision to admit your student, but the decision of how much money to award or not. And let me just emphasize that the decision to admit your student has been made. So the fact that you are going to appeal is not, you shouldn't feel like they're going to take away the admission. That's been made. That's, kind of in stone, unless your student has done some other, academic issues, or maybe, social media issues that they choose to pull the admission from. But the schools are not going to take away the admission because you decide to appeal. Okay, so how do you decide whether or not you should appeal? Again, we're kind of going to go down two channels. One is need-based aid, if your student received any, and then there's merit scholarship money. So things that you're going to look at. If you got need-based aid, you're going to want to kind of recalculate and make sure that the money you received, like what is that as a percentage of your need met? So if you understood the financial aid process, you knew, particularly if you were getting need-based aid, that your your need was the difference between your EFC and the cost of attendance at that school. And so whatever financial need-based aid you received, it's in theory, it's a percentage of what that gap is. And you should calculate that percentage because colleges promote, or they share and say we will meet a certain percentage of a family's need. There are schools, like a lot of you probably know, the more the selective schools who don't give merit aid are only giving need-based aid, and a lot of them give 100% of need met. And then it kind of, goes down from there. There are schools that give 90% of need met, 75, 80. You should calculate, what the need met is exactly of your award, and how does that compare to what the school said that they were going to give? And that could be, your first point of why you're appealing. The second is, have you checked if your student did get merit aid? Did you check, some schools have, what's the word? Requirements, right? Which they make very obvious, either on their website, in a chart. And so, have you double checked, that what your students stats were relative, or what your students' requirements were relative to what the publicly, advertised requirements were for the merit. And here's the reason why I say that is there was a situation actually last year where a student didn't get the merit award that she thought she was going to get, and it was a school that publicly publicized what their awards were and what the criteria was. It turned out that her GPA was recalculated by the college. And so what she thought her GPA was, and what she was using to kind of look at what the merit scholarship was that she was going to expect, was different than what the college ended up using. And so and she happened to be just on that cusp of the top tier and the second tier. She appealed it, and actually she was able to convince them to use it, that she was just so close that they recalculated. But it's worth just making sure, if it's publicly available. I'm not saying that all of the merit scholarship requirements or why they give out merit is publicly available, but if it is, I would double check that whatever the requirements are relative to what they're publicizing and what your student is there a discrepancy in what you thought your student was going to get versus what they actually get? And it could be around how the stats are interpreted. Okay, and then finally, another way, to kind of give you an idea of whether you should appeal is we started crowdsourcing offers, college offers, honestly, about 3 years ago. We did it in a very band-aided way initially. Honestly, we just had an Excel spreadsheet, and we had a form, and people shared their information, and we just then would share back the Excel spreadsheet. And over time, as this grew, we actually created a website where people can enter in their offers. Let me quickly, I'm going to jump and show you that website if you haven't used it yet, because it gives you a good sense of what other people got at the schools that your student applied to, got admitted to, and got offers from. So let me quickly jump to that.
Is that the www.comparecollegeoffers.com that you had at the bottom of that slide?
Yes, comparecollegeoffers.roadscollege.com. Yes. So, if you don't have an account, it's easy enough. You can create an account. We send you a password, and then you can log in. I'm just going to go in there under my test account. So what it will do, because I already have this set up, it will initially ask you to set up a profile. And let me show you the profile. This is pretty. Let me just confirm that this information, we collect it. We do know your email address connected to the offer, but any information that is shared with other people, it's completely anonymous, and you'll see how it's anonymous. But we don't even ask for a name. We don't ask for your name. We don't ask for your student's name, because that's not the purpose. We're not using this for marketing. We're just really using it to crowdsource and people to share information. So we do ask what state you're in, because so you might see that there's a pattern of different colleges pulling from different states. We ask what your student student's unweighted GPA is. We do ask what your EFC range is. Again, we don't need to be like really specific, but we want to get an idea, because you will see that, different levels of EFCs might get different amounts of merit or obviously need-based aid. So we have like $5,000 increments on the EFC, and then quite honestly, above 60,000. We just need to know that you're above 60,000. Yep.
I'm such a neophyte. EFC, I should have known this, but maybe my wife does. EFC stands for
expected family contribution.
Perfect.
Yeah. So if you filled out your FAFSA, you would know the EFC. We also ask for unweighted GPA. And then as of last year, because of test optional, we asked if students had taken the SAT or ACT. So you would tell us, whether or not your student took one or the other, and give us the scores, or maybe your student didn't take any of the tests, and that's fine too. We just want to start to see if we get enough information on the back end, if there's some, patterns about students who submitted their test scores and got money versus students who didn't submit test scores. I don't know the answers to that yet, but we're just trying to see if we can gather enough information to take a stab at that. Okay, so once you create the profile, then you would add a school. And then in the school information, obviously you pick whatever the school is. You pick whether it was early decision 1, early decision 2, or early action. Regular decision at this point, there's probably no regular decision. It's really either some of the early or rolling decisions. And then we break out the different types of money that you're likely to have been offered from the school. The first is total grants and scholarships based on financial need. So this is where if you got any need-based aid, you would put the information. And then the next category is grants and scholarships not based on financial need, AKA, and we're actually changing this language. This is where merit scholarships would go. Some people now at this point, they've been told that they're getting subsidized or unsubsidized federal loans. So you could share that information. And then if you've gotten any, Pell or state grant, if you've been offered work study, and if now, and a lot of people don't, if you've applied for any private scholarships, which are not related to the college, that's a completely separate process. But if you're getting any private scholarships and want to share that information, that would be helpful. So the two most important columns or buckets are the need-based aid and the merit scholarship money. And then I'll just go, let's see, show. Okay, and then you can go compare the offers. So this is an example for Arizona State University for 2022-2023, because Arizona made a big announcement. They sent out a lot of acceptances much earlier on than other schools. We already have a lot of information, for that school, and you can quickly go through and see what state, basically what EFC the family is in, what state, what GPA, and what test score, and then you get a sense of what the money was that family, that student was offered. And then you can kind of scroll through. You can also, because we've now done this for just a few years, you can go back and look at 2021, 2022 if you want to. Last year is when we started getting a lot of information. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we actually have a decent amount of information for 2 years prior. The first year was this 2019, not as much information because that's really when we started. But and not every school will go back in history. It depends, how much information we got from schools. So this is a great way to see, did for a similar student to, who your student is in terms of, stats, were they offered a similar dollar amount? I do caution, I don't think that this is information you can actually use in the admissions process, I'm sorry, in the appeal process. I wouldn't say, oh, according to the compare college offers, table, a student, from Nevada got this amount and that's why I'm appealing. But this just kind of gives you the idea of, were you offered something fair or not? And so you can then kind of decide to go down the other process suggestions that we're going to go through.
Great information.
Good. Glad you guys like it. So, this is, I just kind of encourage, the more people who share, the better we're all off. And this kind of goes back to, even the discussion on early decision, or basically, helping people be consumers. The more we can get, colleges aren't helping us be transparent, so we got to help each other be transparent. So, if we can share, it will help everybody this year. And actually it also helps people in the, behind us, because, if we start to see patterns, we can, make other people aware about what's happening in the process. Okay, let me switch back. Okay. So again, how do you decide to appeal? This idea, a lot of colleges these days, again, I'm kind of going back to consumerism. They are businesses and they operate on some level as a business. And I know they hate using the word negotiate, but at its core, this process of what you're now kind of going through about appealing, you are kind of negotiating. Your family made the decision to apply. The school made the decision to, offer your student a spot, and now you're negotiating on how much they offer. Isn't enough to actually get your student and your family to commit. So it's I've seen it kind of often that I would say a school, it's not across the board, but there are schools that kind of lowball that first offer that they give. And this is really more in merit money. Need-based aid, it's very much formulaic. It's actually somewhat also overseen by the government. So there's less fooling around in the need-based offers, but in the merit offers, there's no regulations, so I have seen that a school, kind of, they again, if you think in business terms, they are trying to get you and your student and you to commit at the best price for them, not for you. So I've definitely seen where just simply going back to some schools and saying, this is, I need a little bit more money. They kind of very quickly up the merit scholarship award. And to me, that says they lowballed them to begin with, and they knew that the family was going to come back and ask for more. And so they that's why they respond so quickly. Again, should you appeal? If you look and you have some knowledge that similar students are getting, better offers, yes, I would appeal. The comment here from FAFSA and CSS Profile, this is the time sometimes when people realize that they have made it, or there are mistakes on those forms. And that's the reason why they didn't get the need-based aid that they were hoping to get. So, and I'll give you an example. Last year, a family reached out, and the mother, and this was a common mistake that's happening on FAFSA, the mother had a 401k rollover, and that was treated improperly with FAFSA. It's kind of a known problem, and it inflated their EFC. Therefore, they didn't get the need-based aid that they expected, but they truly deserved the need-based aid. But they didn't realize that the error had been made on their FAFSA. And so they had to go through the process at that point to appeal, and that's when the school is able to correct your FAFSA. So if you have any inkling, or you sense that like your need-based aid is so far off from what you expected, it could be that there was a problem in the way the forms were filled out. And then in addition, there is something called special circumstances, which we'll talk about, what exactly they are. And again, this relates to need-based aid, but, if between because need-based aid is very heavily based on your taxes from 2 years ago, if your financial situation has changed dramatically from 2020 to today, a job loss, medical expenses, there's other specific examples, you have the right to appeal, and it will fall under special circumstances. And I'll go through that because you're going to want to use that language called special circumstances. Okay, and here it is. So there's actually a term, and again, this relates to need-based aid. There's a term called professional judgment. It's a government term that gives the financial aid office the right to change your EFC. And here are the specific reasons that would fall under those special circumstances. So, if you've lost your job, or your employment has changed significantly, that it has impacted your income, if you've gotten a reduction in child support, if you've gotten divorced between or separated between 2020 and 2022, if there's been, unfortunately, a death, and then the other big thing is there's been excessive medical expenses that either they weren't there in 2020, or that that the forms don't properly reflect what these expenses are. So here's your chance to explain that your family's medical expenses are much higher than what are reflected in the documents that you got to send in to the college. And the last one is the example that I just showed you or talked about of that family, that there was a one-time taxable event that potentially inflated your income or your tax returns. That's not a normal event that happens every year. And then what I want to point out is, if you go down this route of professional judgment, that you have to have documentation. So you can't just write a letter and say, I lost my job, or my medical expenses are X, Y, and Z. You have to show them. You actually have to pull your bills. They need to have some evidence that what you're saying is true. Okay, so merit scholarship route. I'm going to tell you, to some extent, my opinion. There aren't hard and fast rules about, appealing merit scholarship. What I just talked about for need-based aid, it's a little bit more concrete. Again, it's regulated. You can you appeal because one of these special circumstances, is happening to you. So it's a little bit more defined. This, merit scholarship, again, I'm going to tell you my opinion, and honestly, sometimes my opinion changes because I do see, some things worked for a family that I didn't expect. So that I'm happy to change what my thought is, and I can't say that this is that every school operates the same. And it's a gray area, merit scholarships and how to appeal it, and it's a gray area how the schools are going to respond to you. But here's my best suggestions is definitely narrow down to 2 or 3 schools that your student is looking at. You're not going to go and appeal to every single school that your student might have been accepted to. You might appeal to 2, and so you really want to figure out which of the 2 that you want to put your effort in and go through this process. Not that it's a hard process, but I guess what I encourage people is that if you're going to enter into this kind of negotiation, that if the school responds and they do give you what you're asking for, they're going to give it to people who they have a sense that the student and the family is going to commit. So they want to give you more money, obviously, right, in the hopes that you're going to commit. So you want to really give them that sense that that you are going to commit if they give what you're asking for, or at least they give some portion towards it. So
Debbie, what if you've already ED'd though? Is the merit scholarship applicable if you've already ED'd, or can you go back and just say, listen, we've heard that you can say that not enough money or whatever, but now all of a sudden, that's all the ED question there.
Yeah. So the ED question, and you can email me offline. Majority, not all, majority of schools that you're going ED are not giving merit scholarships. So you're really kind of talking that need-based route. But why don't I think it would be easier why don't you email me your situation and the schools? Because then I would be able to give a better opinion.
Perfect.
If you file a special circumstance and you get merit, do they look at the EFC and let's just say you have to file a special circumstance and then your EFC does change, do they go back to the merit and can give more?
Well, it depends which way your EFC changes. They might.
It would definitely go down because it would be a total loss of income because of the pandemic. So when we filed when we did the FAFSA, you have to give, I forget what year data, but both parents were working. But since then, we had I forget what year of FAFSA did we have to file for my senior?
2020.
Yeah. So at the time, we were working, I was working, but now I'm no longer. So the EFC is different, but I've been able to reflect that.
Yeah, so you would want to do a special circumstances appeal process. And, it's going to be dependent on the school. Some schools will increase, their need-based aid to you, especially maybe if you've already gotten some. Some schools could compensate you by giving you more merit money.
Okay, so merit can change. Okay.
It can.
Okay.
It's going to depend on the school and where they want to kind of pull the money from.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
You mentioned specifically, you said a couple of times, the special circumstances appeal process that kind of implies that you appeal on one or another circumstances, criteria,
Yes.
or can you try in multiples?
Oh, you mean if I'm looking at this list here, if several of these things have happened to you?
I'm sure you can do on multiples on this. There's special circumstances changes, and then there's also differences in awards from other schools, and in other words, there are other things that have been discussed, but you've described it in ways that sound like you appeal for this set of reasons or for that set of reasons, not necessarily both. Is that?
You could appeal for both. If your student has, yes, you could appeal for both. You might have to go through different offices because the special circumstances, any need-based aid, you are talking to the financial aid office. Any merit scholarship money, you were talking to the admissions office. So if you feel like you've got, a good case for both, yes, you could appeal the need-based aid and merit aid from the same school. Okay. So going back to merit scholarships. And so we're kind of in this like in between period, right? Where people probably have gotten offers, but you haven't gotten all of your offers. So it depends on the offers that have come through. Are they from the schools that your student wants to go to most? Or if you're still waiting for that, school that is the top of their list, then I would wait to see what that offer is. So people, this is January. Honestly, towards the end of January, some people start to go back to colleges and say, I'd like to discuss, and we'll talk about how you do that. This isn't going to meet my needs, or I feel I should get more. And and schools start to give money, this time of year. This is this gray area. Some people feel like, start appealing as soon as you get a few offers, like in the end of January, February timeframe. Other people say, wait a little bit longer till you have all of your offers in hand, and you've really decided on what your top 2 or 3 schools are that you're comparing against. The other piece of information that goes into that waiting story is some schools, they start to see their numbers come in, and they basically see either where hitting our yield that we expected, the number of students who are actually saying yes to their admission offer, or they're not. And so the closer you get to May 1st, schools that are not hitting their numbers tend to start to be a little bit more generous, because they figure, well, if I can, offer a few more $1,000s to get that student family to commit, it's going to be worth it at that point. But they wait, because again, think about any sort of like smart negotiation. They're kind of holding their most valuable offer to the end. So depends, how much patience you have. And, if you want to just going to get this process over, you still get increased merit from the school at this point. Who's to say if you waited, you might get more? I can't answer that. So this is, kind of your decision about when you want to give this a try. We're going to go through an example. What you should be looking at when you're comparing offers is not just the dollar amount. It's not just that college A gave your student a $10,000 merit scholarship and college B gave the same amount. What's really the thing that you want to compare and what you're going to communicate to the colleges is what that merit offer is as a % of the cost of attendance, because that's what's important, right? So you're going to calculate that out, and I'll do a quick example. The other question to think about is, since your student has sent in their applications, have there been any other academic improvements? Have you, have they gotten an award that wasn't represented on the application? Did they end up getting test scores that weren't sent in time, to the schools and they're better? Did they get, the first semester grades that haven't been submitted yet to the school? So is there something that has changed that makes your student look a little stronger as compared to the information that was sent in on the application? Obviously your student was accepted, but is there something that's going to make them even appear more appealing to the school, that you can communicate to them? And that kind of goes to that, how desirable is your student? If your student was accepted and they are at that top range of what the school normally accepts, so which is a good thing, right? Let's say that they're at the top GPA and test score range. They're obviously a very attractive candidate to the school, and it might be the reason why they're even offering any sort of merit aid to begin with, because they want to increase the academic rigor of the students that come there. So, you might want to hold out a little longer because you know that your student is maybe more attractive than the student who applied and got in, but their test scores put them in the average range. It could be, again, this is where geography plays in, and it might be interesting to look at if you see other offers from the school in the Compare College Offers website. If you're from a school if you're from a state that school doesn't normally recruit from, if you're from a high school that the school doesn't normally recruit from, that kind of puts you as a more interesting candidate to that college. And so, that kind of might make you more desirable. If your student was accepted because they had a special talent, so kind of think through why you think your student was accepted, to that school, and that might be that little hook that you can use when you write to the school, or when they write to the school to ask for more money.
Hey, Debbie, I have a question regarding timing. I know you're speaking about schools that have already given merit. And this might be a one-off situation, but you mentioned special talent. So I have a student who was accepted to the school, is very much on the high top range of the school. The school is known for giving out merit. Other people we know have received the merit offers at this point. Because he has a special talent, he's a musician, he's in the process of auditions. So he's accepted to the school, was waiting for the audition. The audition went through. The music department actually called and had somewhat of a recruiting call with the student. And now they're waiting for their final acceptance to the music department of the school. So my question from timing, should he wait until they say, okay, officially on paper, you're accepted, and hopefully there's an offer there? Or should he kind of do a follow-up with the people he spoke to and say, I'm also looking for scholarship? What would be
let me make sure I understand, because I think I might have missed this. So he has not been accepted at all to the school, or he has been accepted. Oh, so he has been
he-
accepted.
he
He's
was-
just waiting to get into this special program or department.
Correct. And they were waiting for an audition. He played for them. They were, from what they said, was really super excited. Actually called him, and it turned into what sounded like a recruiting call. Really, but now we're just waiting for kind of the official letter from the department saying,
Right.
yes, not only are they in the school, but
Does he know, does that department offer any additional scholarships? Does he, sometimes there are scholarships that come from specific departments.
we could not find anything on the website. We know that the school itself does, which they'll be going to the school, but we don't see anything specific to the
have your
department.
student, I wouldn't actually have him ask like a demand. I would just kind of have him ask out of curiosity, and say,
Okay.
I'm really excited. This work, it was a great, audition. I'm hoping that, that I get accepted to the program. I couldn't find any information, but can you tell me, are there any additional scholarship opportunities if I'm accepted into the program? And just kind of
Right,
like
perfect.
hang it
that
out
I could
there.
apply to. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So make
yes,
it more
yes.
like I'm looking to fill out paperwork almost, like I would like to apply to if I do get in.
Exactly,
Versus
exactly.
Give it to me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So you're
Thank
kind
you
of
for
giving a
answering that.
hint, and then you'll see what happens when the actual offer comes through.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so going back to the math of comparing offers. So I mentioned on the left, here's grant and need-based aid. You want to look at what percent of the offer that you were given in need-based money, what is that a percent of your need? And then compare it to what the school publicizes as what percent of need that they meet. And then in terms of, merit scholarships, just do the math and figure out what the discount is. Again, we're talking business, and this is, what they're giving you is basically a discount off of the cost of attendance. So what was that merit scholarship as a percentage discount off of the total? And that's what you're going to be comparing. So, in this example, one school, the discount percentage was actually 25% versus the other school was 33%. They had different starting cost of attendances. They got different merit offers, but it's the 25 versus 33% that you want to be really looking at.
Debbie, can you clarify that? Because the college B merit, I had assumed that 10K as a fraction of 45K is not 33%. Are you calculating the 33% a different way?
Oh, you know what? Let me see. You are
15K, it would have been 33%, at least what I thought you meant to.
You know what? Yes, I think that. So sorry. I think there was a typo in this slide. Thanks for catching it. It should have been. It should have showed that the merit offers were the same, but the discount amount was different. Thank you. I will update that.
Debbie,
Yes.
the EFC we get from the government site, but some of the schools have their institutional EFC, which is different often than the federal. Does the school publish the ones that calculate an institutional EFC? Do they show that to the student when they deliver the package, so you know what their number is? I mean, I know it's kind of in the background of their net price calculator, but
You know what? That's a really good question. Some schools do and some schools don't. In theory, you can kind of back into it. Again, if you've got need-based aid, you can kind of look at how much aid you got and subtract it from the cost of attendance. And in the difference in theory is the EFC that they were expecting you to pay. But again, going back to consumerism, this is a great question. You should be, call the financial aid office and say, I know that you used an institutional methodology. You didn't share with me what my calculated EFC is based on your methodology. Can you tell me what that is?
okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Debbie, real quick question on, there's something that we got called a alumni award or something like that. Is that merit or university and alumni award? So is that anything familiar to people? Or does that fall under like?
This is a really good question too. And what you're asking is, and you're pointing out is that the offer letters that come from colleges are not always clear about what the type of money is that you're being offered, which is another sad comment on the process. I'm going to guess from the name that that is a merit scholarship, but we shouldn't be guessing in this process. So you have the right to just call back, or your student, these are great skills for your students to learn now. Have them call back and say, I'm just confused. I need some clarification on the offer. This alumni scholarship, is this a merit scholarship or is this based on need? And I'll tell you the other reason why it's important to know that. Again, I think that these are great practice for your student to do. But the other reason why it's important is because usually merit scholarship is something that the student will get for 4 years. So if that alumni scholarship is a merit scholarship, then that's something you should be able to count on, that every year your student's going to get that money. Need-based money is recalculated every year. So you absolutely want to understand the buckets of money that is being offered to you. Is it need-based or is it merit?
Super information.
And sorry, the second piece of that merit comment is that some merit scholarships come with requirements. That it could be a GPA requirement. I mean, I'm guessing the alumni one doesn't, but there are other merit scholarships that definitely say your student has to have a 3.0 GPA. In some cases, there are scholarships that say your student needs to have a 3.5. Again, you want to know that in advance for a lot of reasons. You want your student to be aware of that, so, do they feel comfortable? Can they make whatever the requirements are for that scholarship? The second is because if they don't feel comfortable, they can make it, you're then, you're making a dollar decision, right? And what the cost of that school is. And you got to be confident that that money's going to be there every year. And if their student, doesn't make the requirements and they've lost that merit scholarship money, you're at the school, you're in a bigger financial hole than you expected. And that is not unusual. That happens. That students, they don't make the requirements in, usually in year 2 or 3 on the merit scholarship money.
Debbie, can you leverage a merit award from one college to another college, showing if it's a comparable college? Say I'm getting X amount from college X, and if you show the award letter, to be able to try to leverage more merit.
Yes, but I would put it in the reference of, again, not the dollar amount, but the percentage. Because it's your net cost that really is what's important. And so it's the percentage of what that merit amount is relative to that college. And absolutely, if you feel comfortable, and you should, if you actually have a letter and documentation, I would include that in what you share with the other school.
Thank you.
Debbie, could I ask a question you were just talking about with the qualifications? So my son just got one and it was a 3.2 GPA, which, who knows how that's going to
exactly.
Where can we find out all the fine print on the merit?
Yeah, and I'm glad you used that word fine print, because this is the important fine print. If they don't include it in the offer letter, again, I would have your student call the admissions office and say, so happy I received this merit scholarship. I just want to make sure I know all the requirements around it so that I can feel comfortable. I can, achieve those requirements every year. Where can I find that information, or can you tell me what that is?
Also,
So,
a GPA requirement is from I have an older student in college, and she did drop below the requirement in first semester, and at her university, they give her a semester to bring it back up. So it's like a warning that if by the end of this year, she's not at the threshold. So you might want to find out. Not all schools do that, but
that's a really great point too. Yeah, you should find out kind of what their notification process is, and if there's any leeway in when they do they give you a chance to bounce back, or how quickly do they take away the money? Okay, I see Trisha. Do you have a question? You have a raised hand. Okay, well, if you do, come back and unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, so.
Oh, sorry, I'm here. I
Okay.
didn't. When you're figuring out cost of attendance, do you put in the fees and other expenses or just the tuition and the room and board?
If they are fees and tuitions listed on the college's website, like on their official cost of attendance, where they have their cost of attendance, or if it's in the letter that was sent to you, yes, you can include them. But you know, just make sure that this, again, official costs that colleges can include in that cost of attendance. So just make sure that it was either on their website or was in your offer letter. Like you can't include, you know, my students going to the East Coast and I'm from the West Coast and I got to get them, you know, a clothing allowance. But there are other, you know, additional fees that are included in cost of attendance. Okay, so the process itself. Check the school's website. Every school might have a different process. Some schools are very structured. They actually have a form that they want you to fill out. And they'll even say, you know, here's the person to contact, or here's, you know, they might even have a deadline. So again, unfortunately, this is where that word "it depends" comes in. Every school is different. I would just contact the school, or I would first check the website, and B, particularly if it's you're going the need-based financial aid route, call the financial aid office and ask, is there a specific process you want me to use to you know, appeal my need-based aid? There are some schools, and I can't remember one offhand. I know that they actually specifically put it on their website. There are a handful of schools that will say, we do not change our offers. And they actually put it in black and white on the website. And they are referring to, you know, merit scholarship offers. You know, I would still write them. You know, they may ignore it because they've, you know, been pretty blunt and in black and white about what they do and don't do, but there's no harm in giving it a try. Okay, so I'm going to talk about like how you draft the letter and then ask for more money. And then you know, some schools respond immediately. Some schools, it might take a week or two or a few weeks. It also kind of depends, you know, where we are in the process. You know, right now, they might take a little bit of time before responding. As it gets closer to decision day, they might respond faster. Okay, so there's always this question, who writes the letter? Who do you contact, right? I encourage that that the letter comes from the student, as long as it's not a messy financial situation. So, and when I say that the letter comes from the student, it's not that your student is writing it by themselves and you're saying good luck. You know, you're gonna write it with them. You're gonna, you know, review whatever you're ultimately gonna send to the college. But it just, I always like step back for a second, and actually, and I'm pointing over there because that's just where my books are. But Ron Lieber wrote in his book, Paying for College, The Price of College. And I thought it was really an interesting point. He basically said, you know, people who work in admissions, people who work in financial aid are people, they're human, right? So if you can touch their heartstrings, it can't hurt. So if a student writes the appeal and it feels like heartfelt and you know, it's actually in their voice, I think that the people who read it take it a little bit more to heart, as opposed to, you know, a parent who might be very professional and kind of, you know, make maybe a little bit stronger demands. It feels you know, a different approach. So I encourage that the letters come from the students. Again, this is a great teaching opportunity. You can, you know, you work with your student about how to write it, but it's nice when it feels like it really is from the student, as opposed to the parent, you know, trying to do a hardball negotiation. If this is need-based aid, you're going to have to, you know, contact and send it to the financial aid office. If it's merit aid, you're going to send it to the admissions office. So you need to find out who those contact people are. Hopefully your student kind of, especially on the admission side, might already know who their contact is, because a lot of schools have regional admissions officers. So, that's the best person to send it to, because that's probably the person that, read your student's application and rallied for them, to get them admitted. So so you want to find out who that regional person is. And if it's not clear, again, call the admissions office itself. They should know, who the best person is that you should be sending the appeal to. Make sure you have like a strong case for aid. We've talked about it. And on the need-based side, make sure you've got documentation, make sure it's clear what your circumstances, why they changed. This is perfectly fine, even if you want to write those, paragraphs of the letter, because you have more of the financial knowledge of what happened, that's fine. But you can't be high level. You can't just say, my income changed. You need to give a percentage drop, the specifics of what had happened, and then you actually are going to provide the documentation along with this letter. And that's the supporting documents. Okay, and then my last piece of advice is, approach the letter, as you would any, other situation where you're trying to get on somebody's good side. Be grateful about that your student, as the student, they could be grateful about, I was accepted. Explain why this is still, their top choice, and be specific. Don't just say, this is my top choice. Like, explain why, even if it's a reiteration of what was in the application, why, this is, as the woman just gave the example of the student trying to get into a special program within the school. If your student was accepted into a special program, highlight that that was so important to them. Or, it could be because they are really attracted to certain research that is happening. So be as specific as encourage your students to be as specific as they can. Or it could be that, just the whole way that college approaches teaching, fits in with what your student is looking for, the small school or the location. So again, it's just kind of honestly stroking the college to say, why the student, it's to some extent, somebody said this the other day, it's a little bit of a version of a love letter, right? To the school. And then after you kind of, stroke them, then you share, look, I really want to go, but I can't make the numbers work. And not just I can't make the numbers work, I also happen to have a better offer from a similar school. And, from a pure financial standpoint, I have to consider this other school equally, because, at the end of the day, either I can, afford to come to your school, or I can't, as much as I might love, being able to attend. And so then you're just putting out, the numbers. And I guess, so I've also found that it's, particularly on the merit side, it's helpful to come up with a specific dollar amount. I'm just going to be realistic with you guys. Schools, if you were offered a $10,000 merit scholarship, they're not going to come back and say, oh, we're going to up that to $40,000. We're talking about increases of probably, an additional $5,000 per year, or maybe somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per year. That's what you're kind of hoping to get when you're appealing merit. So I'm just going to be realistic, upfront now, unless your student was truly misclassified in terms of whatever merit scholarships that the school gives out. But if you're aiming for that, $5,000 to $10,000 increase in merit, there's a good possibility that they will give it, because it's also, it feels realistic on the school's end. So, $5,000 over 4 years, it's another $20,000. I'm just saying this to kind of, again, set expectations. If you've got a gap between, what the school offered, what you can pay, and it's, again, $30,000 gap, that's not going to be covered in a merit aid appeal. But, if you would be satisfied with an increase of, somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, then I definitely think you should give the appeal a shot. And I would be specific and say, if you can increase my offer by $10,000, I would be thrilled to accept your and attend your school. And as we mentioned, if there's been any changes in your students' situation for the better in terms of, academics, awards, definitely include that in the letter as well. Oh my gosh, it is 12:59. Never been that good about finishing these things on time, but this is basically, what I've got to say in terms of giving people guidance. I will say my last thing, and I know, we don't, oops, sorry. Oh, I don't even know. But, oh, here, let's see. We do have a really, minor service that we kind of give you if you want. It's a little bit more detailed than what we went over today. We give you in the outline of a letter to send to a school. We will review anything that you want to be reviewed in terms of preparing for the appeal. And, we'll just kind of be a second set of eyes as you go through the process, if that's something you want. So that's if you go to rhodescollege.com appeal review, that's something you can get. It's really not that expensive. The other thing, this is what I wanted to show you, what to expect. You have to expect that sometimes they will come back and just say no. It happens, right? And so then you got to make your decision about whether or not you're still gonna your student is still gonna go there. Most typically is what I kind of said, 1,000 to 5,000. I've seen, more so these days, 5,000 to 8,000. That's actually, not unrealistic. But if you're, again, looking for those huge numbers, unless you've made a big mistake on the need-based side, you're not going to get huge changes. But again, to me, is it worth kind of spending some time writing this letter, potentially getting an extra 5,000 a year that translates into 20,000? Yes, it's worth it. Okay. Hope this was helpful.
Oh, super helpful, Debbie. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody else sharing.
No problem. Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Let me know if you've got questions. You can send me in an email or post them in the Facebook group. But and I always love to hear, if you do this process, what happens? Like, let us know. In fact, I'm not there yet, but in our next iteration, which will probably be next year, of the Compare College Offers, we're going to actually add in, if you have appealed, what was your result? Because that would be really fascinating to start to gather information.
You're
about.
empowering us consumers. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.